It's kind of hard to imagine now, but there was a time when good enough was, well, the standard for business. Massive amounts of waste, that was just considered a normal part of the daily grind. But that all changed back in 1986 when a truly revolutionary blueprint came along. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, the Juran quality trilogy.
So let's start with a question that really gets to the heart of the matter. Before all this modern quality thinking, achieving excellence was, well, it was basically a roll of the dice. You just hoped for the best. You couldn't really plan for it. And for any business, you can bet that kind of uncertainty wasn't just a little headache. It was a huge, expensive problem.
The old way of doing things was completely reactive. Seriously, picture this. A factory makes a huge batch of products, and only when they're all done does someone come along to inspect them. So what happens? You guessed it. Piles and piles of scrap and just endless rework. And the crazy part is, this was just accepted as a normal cost of doing business. But wow, was it wasteful.
So that was the old way of thinking about quality. This complete reliance on inspection at the very end, that was just how things were done. And the real problem for managers was that this whole method basically guaranteed that you were building flaws right into your product from the very start. The plan was just to, hopefully catch them later, no matter how much it cost.
But then, in 1986, this brilliant management thinker, Dr. Joseph M. Juran, came along with a totally different idea. He said, wait a minute. He argued that quality shouldn't be an afterthought, something you just try to fix at the end. Instead, it should be managed proactively, with the same seriousness and importance as, say, the company's finances.
And what's so powerful about Juran's thinking is this one simple phrase, fitness for use. See, this meant that quality wasn't just about ticking boxes on some internal spec sheet. It was about whether the product or service actually worked for the customer. I mean, think about it. A car could meet every single engineering spec, but if the cup holders are impossible to reach, well, it's not really fit for use, is it? That one little idea completely shifted the focus to the customer experience.
Now, to get the top brass, the executives, to actually pay attention to this stuff, Juran did something absolutely brilliant. He framed his whole quality trilogy using the one language every manager understands, money. He said, think of quality planning like you think of budgeting. Think of quality control like measuring your expenses. And think of quality improvement as a straight-up cost reduction project. And just like that, all the executives were leaning in.
So this trilogy is made up of 3 interconnected parts. First up, you've got quality planning. This is all about designing quality into the product or service from the very, very beginning. Then there's quality control, which is about making sure you maintain that level of quality during your day-to-day operations. And finally, the really exciting part, quality improvement. This is where you systematically break through to whole new levels of performance.
Okay, so it's really helpful to see where Juran fits in with the other big names in quality. You've probably heard of Deming and his whole PDCA cycle, Plan, Do, Check, Act, which is great for improving a process. And then there's Crosby, who gave us that big, bold goal of 0 defects. But Juran, he provided the overarching strategic framework for managing the whole shebang from the executive suite down. He gave them the big picture.
All right, let's break this down piece by piece, starting with the foundation of the entire system, quality planning. This is where the magic really begins, because it's all about preventing problems before they even have a chance to happen.
In this phase, you're not just thinking about the final product, you're actually designing the process that's going to deliver that quality. It all starts with figuring out who your customers are, and I mean all of them. Not just the person buying the product, but your internal customers too, like the next person down the assembly line who depends on your work. Once you really get what they need, you can build features and processes that are designed from the ground up to get it right the first time.
Okay, so you've done your planning. The blueprint for quality is there. But what happens when the wheels are actually turning and production is in full swing? Well, that brings us to phase 2, quality control.
This is really the day-to-day operational part of the trilogy. The whole point of quality control is to keep an eye on how things are actually going, check that against the goals you set back in the planning phase, and then, and this is key, act immediately if something's off. It's all about holding the line, maintaining the standard, and stopping small problems from turning into big ones. What people often call firefighting.
And this chart is a fantastic way to see how it works. So, you have your process humming along in what Juran called the original zone of quality control. Everything's stable. But then, bam, something unexpected happens. Maybe a bad batch of raw materials comes in, or a machine goes out of whack. That's what he called a sporadic spike.
The job of quality control is to pounce on that spike, figure out what caused it, and get the process right back to where it should be.
But here's the thing. Just fixing those random, one-off problems, that's not enough to really get ahead. If you only do that, you're just maintaining the status quo. And this is where the third, and honestly the most game-changing part of the trilogy comes in: quality improvement.
See, quality improvement isn't about firefighting at all. It's about making firefighting a thing of the past. It's a structured project-by-project way to achieve true breakthrough performance. We're talking about fundamentally changing the entire process so you can reach levels of quality you might not have even thought were possible before.
Let's look at that chart again. See that big chunk of waste at the bottom before the process gets better? Juran had a name for that: chronic waste. This isn't a sudden spike. This is the stuff that's built into the system, the everyday inefficiencies, the acceptable level of defects. And he figured this could be costing a company 20, 30, even 40%. Quality improvement is all about attacking that chronic waste. You form a team, you diagnose the root cause, and you put a permanent fix in place. And that drives the whole cost down to a new, much better level. And that becomes your new zone of quality control.
So, what does this all mean in the real world? Well, the Juran trilogy wasn't just some theory in a textbook. It had a massive, lasting impact on how the best companies in the world operate, even right now today.
Juran's legacy is just huge. He completely flipped the script on how businesses thought about quality, moving them away from just finding problems to preventing them in the first place. And because he spoke that language of money, he got quality a seat at the big table, making it a strategic issue for the CEO. The results, they speak for themselves. Companies that really embraced this saw defects plummet, productivity soar, and they gained a serious competitive advantage.
And that really brings us to a final thought for you to take with you. What Juran proved is that a huge amount of the waste in any process is that chronic stuff, the problems that are just accepted as the way things are. So think about your own work for a second. What are those persistent headaches, those inefficiencies that everyone just lives with? Because Juran's big insight was that that's not a problem you have to put up with. That's your next big opportunity for a breakthrough.